Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdes, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdes.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdes, Valdes with an S, at Rich Valdes on all of the social media. Welcome to the Friday night edition of the program. We are live, we are national, and it is 7 minutes past the top of the hour. If you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4 And today, a bunch of news coming out of Washington, a bunch of court decisions, apparently, that, let me see, I'm going to just rack these up before I say what I'm going to say. Yeah, you've got this, not the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals weighing in against El Trompito, saying that tariffs are illegal. And that's interesting because we've had those forever. It wasn't like he started those. Then you've got ATF agents in D.C. stopping a potential shooting. And there's another court blocking the Trump administration from ending deportation protection for Venezuelans. That's the temporary protected status, TPS. So we're going to get into all of that stuff. Netflix, the co-founder of Netflix, donated $2 million to redistricting efforts in California. And we're going to talk about not so much Netflix, but the entertainment world and see what's going on with that. But I wanted to start with which one was it here? Oh, number 7, right? The number 7, Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie O'Donnell, and you got to love her, right? Because she's the subject of probably one of the funniest debate moments in American debate history, where Megyn Kelly, who was no fan at the time of President Trump's, turns to President Trump in a debate and says, "Sir, you've called women fat, ugly pigs." And he says, "Nope, only Rosie O'Donnell." I almost fell off the chair I was in when he said that. I thought it was so funny. And in my opinion, I said, man, this guy just won this whole debate. Now, it wasn't a policy thing, but it was a presence thing. Trump was able to, really just suck all the oxygen out of the room with that one snappy comeback. And then, of course, he ensued to go ahead and just, really defeat all of his competitors in that 15-man primary, or even 16-man, I think, at one point, right? I think there were 17 of them or 16 of them. Either way, he ultimately bested all of them. And it made politics, at least the what we do, we observe politics and analyze it and critique it and all that. It made it so fun again. I was like, man, this is what we needed. For years, I had been, always hoping that somebody from the talk radio world would run for president. And I always thought, imagine El Rushbo, right? Imagine El Rushbo running for president, or Hannity, or the great one, Mark Levin. Just one of these guys that so much personality, so much wit, and I thought it would never happen. And then you got El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th and 47th president of these United States. And I always say he is America's first talk radio president. He's the one that creates the funny nicknames that stick. He's got the quick comebacks. He pushes back when he needs to push back. Things that only people in talk radio really do, right? Maybe some people on TV do it, but politicians don't do that. Just imagine, Mike Johnson. He might push back, and he makes great arguments. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, incredibly polished, right? I can't imagine Mike Johnson just telling the media, "Wrong, you're wrong, fake news." Right? It doesn't seem like it fits his character. But it was that direct approach, in my opinion, that got everything done for Trump, right? It was that direct approach that people love. I was invited on a podcast today, and I went and we filmed the episode. And the podcast host asked me, he was like, what do you think of Trump? I said, I think Trump's great. And he said, me too. He said, I don't know why people don't like him. They say he's too brash or he's too in your face. And I said, that's exactly why I like the guy. It's kind of like Trump's not really a schmoozer, even though he can be a charming guy for sure. But he's not a schmoozer. He's a tell you how he feels kind of guy. I don't think many people are wondering what Trump thinks on a number of issues. He tells you what he thinks. And he never really pulls punches in his opinion giving. That's refreshing to me. I'd rather have somebody that does that than somebody that you don't know where they stand and you got to watch them. So anyway, I got off topic there. But Rosie O'Donnell, she falsely claimed that the transgender Minneapolis Catholic school shooter was a MAGA person, white supremacist. And she said this on TikTok. I think we have a clip of it. Check this out.
So about the Minnesota shooting, and it brought me right back to Columbine in 1999 when I just could not get it through my head that students in America were shooting each other in schools. And this was a church inside a Catholic school. And what do you know, it was a white guy, Republican, MAGA person. What do you know? White supremacist.
Wow. Now, look, we don't know a lot about this guy, but what we know so far, he was a transgender shooter that had killed Trump on his gun. That's a far cry. So how does something like this happen? I'll tell you how. When you are led by emotion, when you are led by a passion, a feeling, I'm going to call it hate, right? When you're led by hate, it doesn't matter what that person was. The facts are irrelevant. The truth is, you just want to bring the smoke. You just want this fight with Trump at all costs. And people that believe what Trump believes. That's it. The truth need not apply. And this is, she should be ashamed, and hopefully she gives an apology. Not to the guy, but to the MAGA people, right? Republican, MAGA person, white supremacist. I mean, really, just crazy. And, of course, the evidence we have so far, this shooter, 29 years old, Robin Westman, left behind this manifesto and these social media posts showing hatred of Trump, even writing "Kill Donald Trump" on one of his rifle magazines. So, again, this is just another case of the hate has gone wild here. Hatred gone wild on the left. Democrats, all they can do is hate. And I hate to lump everybody up. I know that gets people angry. I usually say the left within the media or the Washington Democrats. But I'm reaching a point where I'm not getting many phone calls from people going, hey, listen, Rich, I'm really offended at what you're saying. I'm a Democrat. I don't hate Trump. I don't want him dead. I don't always agree with his policies. Where are those people? Where are the people that have a brain? Because, that's literally how politics worked since day one for me. Right? I know back in day one, the real day one, you had Alexander Hamilton and Burr going at it, a duel, shooting each other, dead. Got it. But today, arguments are easy. It's a little bit of name calling, a couple of intellectual disagreements. Yeah. So, Rosie O'Donnell, shame on you. This is definitely, I don't think you're going to lose any clout with your people, with your fans. I think they expect you to just hate Republicans and hate Trump and hate MAGA. But everybody else, it's like, what if you had a couple of fans left? Like, what if there were people like me that say, I don't hate Colbert. I like Colbert. I think he's funny. Most of my colleagues don't think Colbert's funny. He makes me laugh. So what happens to those people, right? She's just writing them all off. Pobrecita. I'm glad I'm not driven by hate like Rosie O'Donnell and the rest of the left. Anyway, speaking of Rosie O'Donnell and her Hollywood lefties, I want to talk about a film. And there is a film that is coming out. It's on very serious topic. It's about the unrestricted warfare that China has claimed that they are going to launch on anybody. That they made their statement years ago saying, look, we will engage in unrestricted warfare, meaning we will try and destroy your society. We will try and destroy your schools. We will try and destroy your economy. It'll be death by 1,000 cuts no matter where you turn. Not necessarily a hot war all the time. And in my opinion, they've been pretty successful at doing that. So we're going to talk about a film called The Unrestricted War. Is Survival Possible? And the screenwriter for the film, Rob King, is going to be joining us momentarily. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Wipe her from her database and burn the body. Keep this contained, or you will join her in the furnace.
How'd you even get these numbers?
That's a state secret. I'll be charged with espionage.
Then you better consider a way not to get caught, or you will lose everything of value here in China.
They both exhibit high temperature, severe headaches, and I'm most concerned that it might be quite contagious.
Why waste a good pandemic, right, General?
You have a serious viral outbreak that can threaten the whole world.
You mean fake news?
I'll never be able to come back to China.
Right now, our safety is what matters most, nothing else.
Mama!
You saw the chaos in the hospital, right? If the party has a plan, it needs to be better.
You think you know better than the party leaders?
I need to be with my family.
They will remain there to complete your mission.
I will not commit a crime against humanity.
The war never ended for us. So to double-cross me, Dr. Conrad, is something I cannot allow.
That is The Unrestricted War, a little bit of the trailer of the film. And with us tonight, we have Rob King. Rob King is the screenwriter for the film. This is a political thriller inspired by the true events, part of the outbreak of COVID-19 early during the outbreak. And I want to get the whole scoop on it from our guest, Rob King, screenwriter. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Rich, and hello, America.
Welcome. So let's get into this. Talk to me about, why a movie on COVID? Why a film that exposes China for what they did?
Well, I mean, the film, first of all, is, largely a work of fiction. But it is based on 6 or 7 events that we know that happened, or truths, facts, which, for the producers was the impetus to try to write a movie that explored some things that have been going on in and out of China, and to turn it into, an entertaining political thriller, but also one that really takes a look at this unrestricted war that's already being waged by the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that because I think I've learned about this a couple of years ago, and I feel like I see it in so many different ways. But tell us a little bit about the unrestricted war, because I know there's a lot of people that believe that a big part of this was a weaponized bio agent, and I'm not saying I'm necessarily one of them or that you need to be one, but it definitely did have a global impact where people all over the world were killed. And it fits the MO of what they claim to do in unrestricted warfare.
Yeah, the movie is about a highly talented Canadian virologist who was seduced into joining with the Chinese government to establish a world-class, ostensibly privately run lab in China. And just as they're about to open, he's arrested and told he has to betray his own country. He refuses to do that, so his family and his business partner are further harassed to the point where this guy decides he's going to do what he's told and hope that will be the end of it, but it isn't, and he's drawn further and further into this nightmare and realizes the only choice he has is to try and escape the country with his family. And that's all set against this looming pandemic and the ultimate cover-up as to its origin. And the film looks at the scope of this secret war that's being waged right now in our modern world by the Chinese Communist Party, which includes economic coercion, technological espionage, suspect science, suppression and censorship of 1.4 billion Chinese citizens, even attempting to suppress those living outside of China, and ultimately the manipulation of the foreign press. And, you know, we know that there is a high-level lab that was built in Wuhan that is presently, well, since it opened, has been run by the military. We know that, there was a doctor in China at the time that COVID broke out named Dr. Li Wenliang, who was an ophthalmologist who noted that there was some strange SARS-like virus starting to show up in some of his patients, and he decided to put out a private message to some of his colleagues and family members, asking them not to spread the word, but just to take care. And of course, that word spread like wildfire. He was eventually arrested and made to apologize, and he ended up getting COVID and died. And even his death became a bit of a cover-up. We know that there was a lab in Winnipeg in 2019 that had 2 visiting scientists, Chinese scientists, who were kicked out of the lab and sent home because it was discovered that they had stolen a vaccine virus and had shipped it back to China. And we know that the Chinese government persecutes a lot of people in their own country if they attempt to criticize or demand change, etc. So we took all of those elements and then we created this story. So that's kind of how it came about.
And
but I mean,
very quickly, if you could tell us, where do people take a look at it? Where can they see the film?
Well, the film was to be released in a number of cinemas across North America, but ultimately at the last moment, the distributors kiboshed that plan. There is a lot of evidence or probably proof to suggest that the Chinese government has money invested in distributors and cinemas, and
quickly give us the website if you can.
Screening of it. The website is it's on GJW. It's a streaming service, and when we come back, I'll give you that site.
Outstanding, folks. We're going to be coming right back with Rob King, screenwriter for the film The Unrestricted War, and me, Rich Valdes. Don't go anywhere.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
A political thriller inspired by true events during the early COVID-19 outbreak. The film The Unrestricted War exposes how the Chinese Communist regime concealed critical information and silenced whistleblowers, triggering a global crisis. Joining us now to discuss the making of the film is director Yan Ma. Yan, thank you so much for joining us. First, talk to us about what inspired you to make this film.
Yes, so this film is inspired by the pandemic and a few related events.
So we mainly focused on the very early days of the pandemic.
Now, the title is The Unrestricted War. Talk to us about why that title and how that fits into the COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, we did many research about the early days of the pandemic, and also some of the events related to that. And we found how the Chinese Communist Party uses power to censor news, and eventually weaponize this whole event to serve their political purpose, and include some of the like technology thefts and commercial espionage activities that are connected to this issue. So all that highly align with the concepts of unrestricted warfare, which is a military strategy they're using to not focusing only on traditional military power, but to use all necessary means to defeat their enemies.
Again, the film, The Unrestricted War, and our guest is with us. He's the screenwriter, Rob King. And Rob King, you were telling us that this film was ready to go and be released in Canada and the United States, and all of a sudden it didn't happen because it's suspected that the Chinese Communist Party began to interfere in the release of the film. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just another one of the ways in which they, managed to suppress any criticism of themselves, and which is, sort of ironic, because if they want to claim this is all just a bunch of poppycock, then why bother, holding up its release in theaters, and why harass the director, for instance, who's both he and his family have faced harassment because of this film. It's just it's unbelievable, really.
And for people who want to try and stream the film, tell everybody where they can take a look at it, how they could see it.
Right. So it's on GJW Plus streaming platform at www.ganjingworld.com. That's GANJING world.com.
Outstanding. Well, good luck with everything. I hope that you're able to continue pushing back against the communists that are trying to silence your work and your ability to tell this, although fiction, inspired by a lot of real-life events that I think need to be talked about. Sir, Rob King, screenwriter for the film The Unrestricted War, I want to thank you for being here. Godspeed, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
You bet. My pleasure. And, amigos, we continue, because plenty of things to talk about. Not only Rosie O'Donnell, but there's a few other things I wanted to get into in the news today. It's Friday, but there's still some news out there. As I mentioned before, you have a Court of Appeals. Court of Appeals decided to say, we think this is illegal. And they're talking about tariffs. So the rule, obviously, this is a 3-judge panel that decides this stuff. And the panel decided the tariffs will remain in effect until October 14th, giving them time to appeal to the Supreme Court. And my supposition is going to be that once you get to the Supreme Court, they will say, of course, a United States president can impose tariffs and can do many other things that the executive branch has the power to do. And I think this will be put to bed then, October 14th. Well, what the judges found was that Trump was, let's see the language here. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit found that the statute Trump relied on to impose the tariffs did not actually grant this authority. That's what the court is saying. Now, Trump, the president, and the White House confirmed earlier today that they're definitely taking the case to the Supreme Court. I promise you I know how to talk and read at the same time. And they're setting up a legal battle that's going to cover the scope of this and the presidential power in order to put duties on foreign goods, which is, it's been a thing forever. It's amazing how all of a sudden, because they don't like Trump, now all of a sudden tariffs are illegal. This is just another one of those things. So, anyway, I'm not too interested in that. But I will tell you what Trump said. He took to Truth Social, and he said the following. Highly partisan appeals court declaring all tariffs are still in effect. So, good. Good for El Trumpito, good for America. As I understand it, we're still doing pretty well with getting our fellow Americans and others to donate to the tariff fund. And that's good, because as long as that money's coming in that way from the people who choose to buy imports, and maybe they don't choose all the time, but it's better than income tax. And my hope is that we will eventually see the end of the IRS as a result. Let's see. Let's see what happens. Anyway, what else do I got? Take a pause here. I'm going to take a pause here. We'll come right back. Your thoughts, your calls, and everything else. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S.
See a bigger jump from August to September. So I think we could be on our way well over $500 billion, maybe towards the $1 trillion number. This administration, your administration, has made a meaningful dent in the budget deficit. The average budget deficit during this term is 26% less than the last 12 months under Biden. And even the CBO, and we don't agree with CBO on everything, as you said, last Friday, on a summer Friday, had to admit that they believe over the next 10 years, the budget deficit will be $4 trillion lower than they had previously scored. $4 trillion, $3.3 trillion of tariff income, $700 billion of lower interest costs, and I would expect that number could go up from here. So, Mr. President, your return to the White House marked the return of the American worker. Thank you for reclaiming Labor Day for the American people. You're growing the economy for everyone, especially the middle and lower income households who suffered disproportionately under the last administration, and it's an honor to do this under your leadership.
Great job. You're doing great. Thank you very much.
That, of course, Secretary Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, explaining what tariff revenues are looking like and what they're expected to continue to look like. And that was just yesterday. And what's interesting here is now today, after saying how great we're doing and how well this is going to work for the economy, voila, you get this court decision. Now, something President Trump said on Truth Social I thought was really important. Quote, if these tariffs ever went away, it would be a total disaster for the country. Saying that on Truth Social. He said it would make us financially weak and we have to be strong. So this decision, obviously attempting to undercut a linchpin in the administration's trade policy. And so far, this has been reshaping economic relations all over the world, not to mention playing a significant part in peace deals. Not a great time for the courts to do this, but again, justice is justice. So if it truly is illegal, then it won't continue. But I would venture to say I'm sure it's not illegal for a country to charge an import tax or a duty. And in effect, this is what a tariff is. And that's, to me, it's a no-brainer. This is going to go to the Supreme Court, and I think we'll be okay. Now, maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. But, I mean, the Supreme Court, I think it's going to be a tough sell to say that you can't have that tariffs are illegal. Come on. It sounds like a stretch. It really does. Let me see what else here. You've got a coalition of small businesses now and 12 separate states that are suing to overturn these tariff programs. And this is exactly what sparked all this stuff. So hopefully these guys will, they had their day in court. They won today. My hope is that they will lose once we get to the Supreme Court, and we can move on to continuing to do the people's business rather than, having to go to court every time Trump suggests that a law be written or, signs an executive order. But that's the obstruction that we're dealing with in Washington. Now, let me see what else we got here. A couple of other details on this. This is an interesting one. Trafficking tariffs, 25% on Mexico. So anybody's involved in trafficking gets an extra tariff. Canada, 10 to 20% on China. And this is justified by the necessity to fight trafficking and fentanyl. So as well as on top of the reciprocal tariffs that were baseline 10%. So very interesting. We're making money, and now the courts have stepped in to slow down that money. The International Court of Trade said that back in May that the IEEPA cannot have blanket tariffs. And, of course, this is why they continued to go to the Court of Appeals. So this stuff is going back and forth, and it has been for a while. I'm glad we're finally here. It's good that we're going to see it soon. I should say sooner rather than later, because ultimately, I don't know. Like I said, we don't get away from the IRS unless we have tariffs. That's the bottom line there. All right, let me see. I have a little bit of time. So there's an audio I wanted to play for you. Forgive me, it's a Friday, and I let my hair down a little bit. And it was not on tariffs, but it was on hope. And I forget which one it was, but let me see here. Bear with me, folks. Bear with me. I'm going to have to look for it during the break. All right, we'll take the break here. We'll come right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
I'm not a Republican, but I listen to you because you speak moderately and reasonably and softly and decently, and I really appreciate that.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's Rich Valdes. We continue our late-night national town hall conversation with you all, the American people. And yesterday there was some talk about some pushback on the CEO of Cracker Barrel, saying that they're pushing to have her out because of the bad decision that was made in the rebrand. And of course they did a U-turn on that, and here we are. So I want to get some of your thoughts and opinions on that. Let's go to Tony calling us from Silver Spring, Maryland, WMAL. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich. Good to hear from you again. Yeah, on that subject, there was an article that just shows once again how out of touch CNN is with the American people. The article's titled, After Right-Wing Backlash, Cracker Barrel says it will get rid of its new logo. One of the things that they cited, among others, is that Charlie Kirk on his social media posted a side-by-side comparison of Sydney Sweeney's quote-unquote controversial American Eagle ad and the original Cracker Barrel logo with the new minimum.
I saw the CNN article, Tony, and I didn't see this comparison. Honestly, I will say that you're right. It was poorly worded. It was backlash from the customers, so much so that their stock price was affected, so much so that it got the attention of the President of the United States, and he made a comment, and only then did they realize, wow, maybe this isn't a good idea. So, yeah, to your point, I agree. The CNN always spinning things to make it seem like right-wing backlash. But let's say, even if it was right-wing backlash, if you are the Cracker Barrel people, you should be equipped somewhere and say, who is it that comes here? Do we have a bunch of radical leftists that eat in our restaurant, or are they people that are right-wing pushbackers, backlashers, whatever they want to call them? I would venture to say that they have a largely conservative audience or customer base, politically and otherwise, because of the way it is, right? I mean, it's going there, from what I understand. I've never been to one. It's a slice of Americana, as they say. So I can't imagine how, you get the left-wing person in there and they go, let me do this. And the same is true for any organization. You might be a member of the LGBTQ community, a person that idolizes Karl Marx, someone that has never voted for a Republican or conservative or independent in your life. You've only voted for progressive Democrats. You believe in everything Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and AOC stand for. You think Zoran Mamdani is fantastic. And let's say you're the CEO of a company that has, a largely conservative customer base. As a professional, you should be able to realize that my views don't go over well here because they don't match that of our customers who spend money on our products and listen to the advertising that we put out. So clearly, you can do a good job if you are a person that doesn't agree with things in any capacity, right? And I don't begrudge anyone like that. So I think when it becomes problematic is like what you see with Cracker Barrel. When it's kind of like working, maybe not enough, and you want to spruce things up, but then you end up getting into a situation where you make things worse. And if we learned anything from the Target stuff, or even worse with Bud Light, and they bounce back, but I mean, Bud Light is a staple in beer. Right? Again, I don't think I've ever had a Bud Light in my life, but I'm not really a big beer drinker. But plenty of people have, and I know the brand for sure. And it makes you think, again, I'm a pretty conservative guy on most fronts. Let's say I became the CEO of a company that had a lot of people that leaned left. I think I could still do the job just because, maybe I have a skill set to do that job. But it doesn't mean that I get to start imposing my will and changing the way things work in this company, because you're going to lose business. And I think that's the key lesson here. So I think Trump's advice was accurate, and CNN's just beside themselves reporting this the wrong way, saying it's a conservative backlash, when in reality it was just their customers. But if we, aren't mincing words, I would venture to say, my opinion is that most of the customers are probably more conservative than not. Tony, Silver Spring, Maryland, thank you for your call, my friend. I appreciate hearing from you. Amigos, we will continue this late-night national town hall conversation straight ahead. But for some of you, you're hearing this at a time where this will be the end of the program. So to you, I say, hasta la próxima, take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdes.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdes, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdes.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdes, Valdes with an S, at Rich Valdes on all of the social media. Welcome to the Friday night edition of the program. We're back for another hour. It's 7 minutes past the top of the hour. And if you want to join us, give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDES. And, of course, we continue. We have plenty to talk about tonight. We're talking about the Chinese Communist Party. We're talking about tariffs, and I want to talk about the economy a little bit because there is a story out there about fraudulent unemployment benefits and, you know, how a lot of these things end up costing us money. It's kind of like a hidden cost to so many different things when you have to calculate in the way like big stores, department stores, they calculate in what they call shrinkage or loss, you know, people stealing. It's kind of like our government. It works the same way. We have to calculate in, well, we have Democrats, so we got to write in, you know, we have to account for this, for that. We have to spend this much money here, this much money there, this many patronage jobs. And it makes me think, should it be that way? Right? Or is it possible to run government without all of the excess, or at least without a whole lot of it? I realize, you know, you can't eliminate all evil in life, but I think you can create enough deterrence to stop a lot of it. Again, those are just my thoughts, but I don't know. We're going to find out, though. We're going to take a look at some of the hidden costs of what some Democrats want to do, including Mamdani. Mr. Mamdani, Zoran Mamdani, who's running for mayor of the city of New York. Yesterday, we talked about him spending or proposing to spend $65 million for transsexual education in public schools, including the school contributing towards sex change operations, what they call gender affirming care. And for the life of me, I mean, I can't think of a time ever in my public school life where that would have been a topic that was, you know, even an idea, right? Oh, you know, let me go to my guidance counselor. Why? Well, because, you know, I want to ask Mr. So-and-so or Ms. So-and-so, or they, if you will, you know, to see if the school has any funds left in its budget because I'd like to get a double mastectomy, or I'd like to, I mean, just so bizarre to think that $65 million in a school district. Why? Why would we, you know, there's certain things that I didn't learn in school, certain things my parents didn't teach me, and I know them today, right? Everybody learns through the school of hard knocks. That's just the reality of life. So we can't just automatically, in my opinion, you can't just say, all right, no, that's it. We're going to spend money on these things, and it's just part of the hidden cost of doing business. No, I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think that's something that should happen. Because it's wrong. I mean, just how many ways can we put things? Sometimes you can't really get too eloquent about it. Right is right, wrong is wrong. And most of my life, right has always been right and wrong has always been wrong. And we've tried to blur these lines in recent years. Okay, I get that. There's, you know, some people saying that, you know, like the attacks on the police, for example. And I don't mean like the people attacking the cops. That's the direct result of the initial attack on police, which I would say is trying to neuter them, trying to, you know, disarm the police, trying to contract with violence interrupters and social workers and provide this type of a safety net for people, in my opinion, is a recipe for more problems. When people know that you're not armed or able to defend yourself, you become a bigger target to the people that are looking to do that type of thing. So I, for one, not a fan of any of these things. I'm looking at an article. It's Curtis Sliwa with the NYPD, and he's helping some people on a subway. Why aren't we putting money into that, right? I think that's the place you need to put money in. You need to bring in more police in New York City and really anywhere else. We've seen it in D.C. We've seen it all over. The reality is there are crime problems in this country in many of the large cities that are run by Democrats. And for years, everything was okay. But it wasn't, right? Everybody who lives there knows that you live in these bloody times. People are getting murdered. And what happened? Well, the media wasn't as interested in those murders. They didn't care to talk about them. They didn't care to put them out there. What they do care about, of course, is throwing Trump under the bus, Tom Homan under the bus, anybody that believes in whatever policies they believe in. They kind of lump you all together, and that's it. You're out of here. Now, that's obviously not a good thing. But needless to say, it's something that's necessary. Another thing I'd say is necessary is not only just, doing the right thing with the money that you have in your budget and not frivolously spending it, but also doing the right thing, period. Just making sure you do what's right. And Tom Homan was on CNN earlier today, and he made a really encouraging statement about kids that were MIA, right? Really because they had been allowed into the country, and the Department of Health and Human Services said, all right, you are in our custody. And next thing you know, these kids are MIA. They're not checking in. They don't know where they are. They're not with these family members. Sometimes these family members are not even in the country anymore. So where are these children? Well, Tom Homan gave us an update on that today. Listen to this.
Out of the 300,000 children, I looked at the numbers just yesterday. We've located over 23,000 of them. So 23,000 locations of the 300,000. Well, President Trump's committed. We're not going to stop till we find every one of them, or at least run every lead down on those 300,000 children. That's a big plus for the administration, because the last administration wasn't even looking for them. So, but as far as with Chicago's coming along with every other sanctuary city. President Trump is committed that we're going to focus and prioritize sanctuary cities, because that is where the problem is. We know for a fact they're releasing public safety threats to the streets every day rather than handing them over to ICE so we can deport them.
That, again, Border Czar Tom Homan, mincing no words. Let ICE deport these people so that they don't get caught up in anything else, like trafficking more children. Kilmar Abrego Garcia became a hero to the left because, for whatever reason, the left seems to embrace criminality, in particular criminality when it's focused on children. Horrible. Horrible thing to be known for. Those guys, yeah, they like to do it. Who wants to be that guy? Anyway, I'm going to take a pause right here. We're going to come back. We're going to continue our discussion. I want to talk about some of the fraudulent unemployment benefits that we talked about before, and the hidden cost of Zoran Mamdani's quote-unquote affordable agenda. Not so affordable. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
We know that dream lives on in every single person who is here today. It is a dream that we have heard time and again that it has to be deferred. And yet we know that its time has come as we stand here in the wealthiest city, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, as we stand here by Wall Street, where last year they had more than $40 billion in bonuses. We ask ourselves, how is it that 1 in 4 New Yorkers are still living in poverty? We ask ourselves, how is it that we have still yet to answer the question that Dr. King posed all those decades ago? Because what he said then, and what we must answer now, is what good is it to have the right to sit at a lunch counter if you can't afford to buy a hamburger? So my name is Zoran Mamdani. I stand before you as a man looking to be the next mayor of this city. And I tell you that every day I will wake up with Dr. King's dream at the forefront of my mind.
You know what's at the forefront of my mind when I hear Zoran Mamdani speak like this? I wonder to myself, the way he's there saying that there was $40 billion of profit in Wall Street, and how dare they, right? And I wonder to myself, does Zoran Mamdani see a woman walking down the street, or a man, and say, excuse me, sir, you're about 300 pounds, you're clearly overweight, you're obese, I don't need a medical degree to determine that. And did you know there are children starving in this world because of you? Do you think he does that? Do you think any one of these lefties do that? Do they stop fat people and say, because of you, because of your ability to eat and gain weight that's superior to other people's ability to eat and gain weight, these children are starving. They're dying because of you. Now, it would make no sense in the world if they said that, right? They'd be like, I don't know, those kids are in another continent. I'm just eating an extra burger here because, why not? But yet it's okay to come in and say, oh my gosh, we're here in Wall Street and they made $40 billion in profit. So you mean to tell me that I didn't make $40 billion in profit because of them? Makes no sense. But yet they will do this all day long. You do it with a megaphone. You throw in some emotion like he did. And we ask ourselves this. And we think about Martin Luther King. Come on, man. Right? In the words of Joe Biden, come on, man. Absolutely not. Until they start asking fat people, excuse me, fat person, did you know that there are children starving because of you? When that happens, I'll start listening to some of these lefties, but not before. I want to talk about Zoran Mamdani, and I want to bring in the CEO of Open the Books Foundation. John Hart is with us. John Hart, welcome, sir.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And John Hart, you just heard a clip of Zoran Mamdani taking shots at what Karl Marx would call a capitalist system, and he's very angry. A man of considerable means himself, a man of wealth who lives in a rent-controlled apartment. He's upset that they're making money on Wall Street, but he's not upset to spend money that isn't his. Isn't that right?
That's right. Well, one of the axioms that I've observed, I worked on the Hill for about 15 years. Most of that time was for a legendary fiscal conservative named Tom Coburn. And one of the arguments we made all the time was that the best way to make something expensive is for government to make it affordable. So whenever you have politicians make the argument that Mamdani is now making, that the key to, quote, affordability is more subsidies, more spending, more taxes, what you end up doing is hurting the very people who need help the most in our society.
Kind of like Obamacare.
Yeah, exactly. I call it counterfeit compassion. So it sounds compassionate, it uses the words of compassion, but it is actually harmful to disproportionately harmful to lower income people. And as the clip you played reminded me of another point, is that making rich people poorer does not make poor people richer.
100% right. Where do you think this faulty thinking comes from?
Well, I think it really that's a very deep philosophical question for a Friday night, but it really comes from kind of a perversion of human nature and economic policy, where people want the path of least resistance. They want something easy, and it's the Marxist ideology is very seductive because it appeals to people on a purely emotional level. But once you begin to poke it and prod it, you realize that it fails catastrophically. Not just a little bit; it fails catastrophically whenever it's applied in the real world. And there's another way to think of this: is that capitalism is the most unfair system ever devised, except for every other system. So there is no perfect economic system this side of eternity in a fallen, imperfect world. But no system ever devised has lifted more people out of poverty, has created more jobs, created more opportunity, combated poverty more effectively than free market capitalism. And it isn't just conservatives that make this argument. It's people like Bill Gates have made this argument. Bono has made this argument from YouTube. There are people who are more on the center left who understand intellectually, when they're honest, that if you really care about low-income people, if you really care about opportunity, you have to promote competition. You have to have a meritocracy, because again, the best way to make something expensive is for government to make it affordable.
That's a great one. I haven't heard that line, folks. We're on with John Hart, CEO of Open the Books, and John Hart, I think you're tracking here. Mr. Mamdani wants to make everything affordable in New York City, from bodegas to everything else, and your axiom is spot on, but in reality there's like a price tag attached to these things, and he wants to spend all sorts of money with it. Quite frankly, I have no idea where he's going to get it, because he's chasing all the rich people away.
No, that's right. And something that everyone listening should read too is something called Rich States, Poor States. It's a publication that a group called ALEC puts out, and what they do is they track the migration from states and cities like New York City to places like Florida. And there is a massive migration happening all over the country because of these economic policies. Again, is that when you confiscate people's wealth and you take away their success and their life savings, they're not going to just sit there and take it. They're going to move their capital and move their creative, not just their capital, but their creative potential to other places. And again, ultimately what that does is it decays, it sort of hollows out those cities from within. And sadly, the story of history is kind of relearning the same lessons over and over again. And, we just tried socialism versus capitalism and communism during the Cold War, but there's a whole another generation of people that haven't lived through that. I'm old enough to remember the Reagan era, the end of the Cold War. I'm still excited about the end of the Cold War. I think it was wonderful that we won the Cold War. But people that didn't, grow up with that, awareness of that bipolar communism versus freedom dynamic, they're thinking, oh, wow, let's give these socialist ideas a try. It can't be that bad. And then you have a Democratic Party that has completely lost its mind, that wants to be relevant and is coddling and supporting Mamdani.
Insanity. John Hart, stick with me. I want to get your thoughts on fraudulent unemployment benefits that were recently announced by Senator Ernst. And we're going to continue our conversation with John Hart, CEO at the Open the Books Foundation, openthebooks.com. Don't go anywhere, folks. Coming right back.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if a viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
What we have discovered in my squeal work and with my great team here, we have identified tens of thousands of federal employees who were receiving a paycheck, but also filed for unemployment compensation. So these are bureaucrats that work in the IRS, TSA, FEMA, you name it. And again, they were receiving unemployment benefits while receiving a federal government paycheck, being paid full time. Some of them even claimed overtime while they were receiving unemployment benefits. So we need to recollect that, and we need to fire these fraudsters.
Is Senator Joni Ernst, some file tape of her on the Fox Business Channel back in 23 with Larry Kudlow, and this has not gone away. In fact, there's more information about these things, and some of these government workers were in fact filing for their unemployment from their workstation while they were getting overtime at another job. Really just egregious behavior, an absolute fake, phony fraud if I've ever seen one. And I want to get some reaction to that from our guests, because this is really, I think, double bad, right? I mean, you expect people to steal, but you don't expect the government workers to steal from unemployment. That's just beyond the pale. So I want to get into this with John Hart, CEO at Open the Books, openthebooks.com. John Hart, what do you think about this?
Yeah, Richard, this is really sad and outrageous, and sadly, it's not surprising. But it isn't just double bad; it's really triple bad in some ways. Because number one is you're spending money on jobs that are probably not all that efficient and necessary. That's scarce dollars and capital that isn't going to people who are producing things. And then second, you're having this money, defrauded from taxpayers. And then third, every dollar that goes to an unemployment benefit that's fraudulent is a dollar not available to someone that may have a legitimate claim. And so you're really hurting. Again, this is a counterfeit compassion argument. Is that we hear so often that, it's cruel, it's unfair to fire federal employees who aren't performing a vital service, but yet we have these examples where these jobs themselves can have tremendously negative effects on the economy, and then it's ripe for abuse. And Senator Ernst has done a phenomenal job, calling these things out. And there's examples like there was a full-time Department of Labor employee who got nearly $46,000 in jobless benefits while claiming every week for a year and a half that he didn't work or receive income, but he had a job. There was a Postal Service employee in Michigan collected hundreds of thousands of dollars from unemployment assistance from multiple states over 4 years. There's a postal worker in Massachusetts that also got unemployment assistance while being employed by the post office. So the list goes on and on of people who were defrauding the government for unemployment benefits. And this is why transparency is so important, because what has enabled Senator Ernst to find these examples is a bill that we helped draft over 20 years ago called the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act that lets taxpayers track every dollar and puts it all online. So it doesn't move as fast as we want. We want to have an upgrade to that and have truly real-time transparency. But it is getting increasingly hard for fraudsters to hide their behavior. And as new technology comes online, it's going to be harder to do that. So I really give Senator Ernst a lot of credit for being diligent and doing the research that's necessary to root this out, identify it.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't seem like an easy task to try to track this down. But you've got, multiple employees taking hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraudulent unemployment payments. Just absolutely crazy. But I want to dig into this because you said, it takes a specific amount of work, and you guys at Open the Books helped write the law on this. And for those who are just joining us for the first time, tell them a little bit about your work at Open the Books and what you guys are doing. John Hart.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up Joni Ernst, because I'll give you. I don't often give this person credit publicly because he gets embarrassed. But there's Ernst's budget advisor is a guy named Roland Foster, who was the legislative director for Coburn when I was the comms director for Coburn. And Roland and I worked together 20 years ago to help write a bill called the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act. And what that bill did is it put all federal spending online in a searchable database. If you go back in time 20 years ago, one of the big new technologies was the Google search engine. And that has proven to be really a groundbreaking transformative technology, where now we take it for granted you can type in something and search it and find all this information. But as a kid, I grew up with the Encyclopedia Britannica, and it was
me too.
Just incredible. Yeah, oh wow, the encyclopedia, you get to open it and flip through these pages, and then all of a sudden you realize every encyclopedia ever written is going to be online. You can type in a few words or a sentence and find all this data. And it occurred to us that we have to do the same thing for government spending. And back in in the early 2000s, we were told by all the powers that be in Washington this is impossible. We'd never get all of these disparate databases with federal agencies to coordinate. And we said, no, that's absurd. That's ridiculous. We have to do this. We've got to figure out a way to put all this spending online. And the vision and the dream was to crowdsource oversight, was to create an ecosystem of groups, of individuals, people like you and your show and your listeners who would hear about these stories and then go do their own research and hold government accountable. And it really is in keeping with the founders' vision for limited government, that instead of growing federal agencies, we want to grow your agency and your ability to pursue happiness on your terms with your own resources, and to hold elected officials accountable and make sure that the focus of power in a free society is with we the people, not with politicians in Washington. And that was the dream. That is the dream. And little stories like this illustrate that when we the people pay attention, change really can happen. And that's the whole vision of Open the Books, is making sure the books stay open and that we have maximum transparency, and to put every dime online in real time is the mission.
John Hart, CEO of Open the Books, openthebooks.com. Tell everybody how they can follow the work you did. I mean, you just made a really great statement, and you pointed out a lot of facts. If people are like, man, I like this guy, I want to learn more about what he's doing, where do they go?
Yeah, you openthebooks.com. We've got our main website. There's a place where you can go in and do your own searches for we make our entire database of government spending accessible. And our database, Rich, includes not just the federal spending that I talked about that we put online, 20 years ago. It includes state and local as well. So we built a data capture operation that is the biggest database of government spending in human history. And it's an extremely powerful tool. So you can find state and local spending. And a good example of how this is useful is when the fires happened in California recently. We were the organization that was able to find all of the salaries and all the pay structure for the fire chief, and we put out reports so people could track where their money had gone. Otherwise, it can sometimes be really hard to get that information quickly. So our main website is where you can do those searches, openthebooks.com, and then we have a Substack, openthebooks.substack.com is where you can find the reports. We have one on the Pentagon waste, and there's an incredible amount of bloat at the Pentagon. There's this use it or lose it rule that we're trying to get overturned, where at the end of every fiscal year in September, the Pentagon spends billions and billions of dollars on things like lobster tail, ribeye steak, furniture. Exactly. So we're urging. I think Secretary Hegseth wants to do the right thing. He's got, he has a lot on his plate, but this is one priority that he really ought to put front and center and say, this is going to end. This is never going to happen again. And he has the authority, and I think the desire to do that. So we're urging him to take that step this month and make sure that we do not have another year-end spending spree.
Yeah, we've done plenty of spending. It's time to move beyond that. John Hart, I want to thank you for being here. Folks, check out the website, openthebooks.com. You're not going to be disappointed. John Hart, for people who want to follow you on social media, where do they go?
Just go to X at John Hart 333. You can follow all of our stuff there.
Give him a follow.
John
check
Hart
him out.
333.
John Hart, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I thank you for being here, sir.
Thanks so much. Happy to do it.
You bet. Godspeed to you. And amigos, your thoughts, your calls, your reactions, and opinions straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S.
I want to say thank you for what you do. You people speak the truth.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Teenager has been charged as a juvenile with unregistered firearms, unregistered ammunition, making threats, and receiving stolen property. He made his first appearance here in juvenile court yesterday, and he was ordered held in a secure juvenile facility until next Friday. According to a search warrant filed in Superior Court, ATF agents working on a task force with Metro Transit Police somehow learned of what appeared to be an ominous threat posted to Instagram. A screen grab of the posting shows what agents say is the teen holding a gun with an image of a drop of blood coming out of the barrel. We have blurred the teen's face since he is charged as a juvenile. The message says OMW to school, or on my way to school. A second photo shows the same teen holding a gun and wearing a backpack. According to the search warrant, officers then went to the teen's school, identified in the document as Idea Public Charter School in Northeast. Officials at the school confirmed to police the teen is a student there. However, nothing in the public filing indicates what school the teen may have been referencing in his social media post. In its posting to X, ATF Washington included this photo showing 6 guns, magazines, and ammunition. The warrant says agents found 7 guns at the home.
This is crazy stuff. So, at first I see this and I say, oh my gosh, this kid posts a picture of a gun, and next thing you know, he's got cops at his door. I am not opposed to anybody posting pictures of guns. I think if you have guns and you want to take pictures, go right ahead. What got him in trouble here was this threat. Now, I don't know exactly what the threat was. If he's just saying on his way to school, I guess they're trying to put 2 and 2 together. But either way, this hunch was right. The ATF and Metro Transit Police were involved in all of this, and they say they've interrupted and intervened in what could have led to a school shooting in Washington, D.C. They served a search warrant related to the case, and they found 7 guns. Now, I don't know whose they were, but this unidentified juvenile was arrested after the investigation based on his social media, confirming that there were violent threats against the school. So, as you heard in the report, they're saying he's not just a risk to himself, but to the community as well. And this, again, I'm never a fan of anybody. You post whatever pictures you want. There's something called free speech. There's also a Second Amendment. If you're not threatening people, you should be okay. But we got to make sure that that's the case, right? And I'm not saying that, they didn't. Obviously, they uncovered a bunch of firearms here. Why would this kid have those? It seems clear to me these are not things that he bought, right? These are not things that, or I should say that, he bought legally. It's not like he went and he's a gun collector. So I get it. Great job to the men and women involved in this. Excellent job. But it begs the question to me, what is going on here? Where are these parents? What is the story, and why would this kid talk about this stuff, right? Is it him being immature, like, I'm going to go do whatever, but not really doing anything at all? Or was this something more? And that's the part, we don't have the answer to. We just know that he got locked up, and they didn't take a chance on whether it was a joke or it could be more. They did the right thing. But wow, really just a crazy time, in my opinion, to be alive, to see what's going on in the world. Wow. Anyway, I'm going to get to your thoughts, your calls, your reactions, and, of course, so much more when we return. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. America at Night with Rich Valdes.
What's up, America? Welcome back. Rich Valdes. And All sorts of people are out. I mean, let me tell you, they spent the summer strategizing, and it looks like they're coming out with a vengeance. The Democrats are no longer resting on their laurels. You've got former President Barack Obama and his Attorney General Eric Holder just cut an ad calling Texas and Florida redistricting racist, and then they go ahead and ask for money. And it's just interesting to see how it goes, considering Illinois did this, California's done this. When they did it, it wasn't racist, it wasn't white supremacy, it wasn't wrong. But when Texas decides to redistrict, it's the worst thing in the world. And all I can say is I think the American voters, many of them might be unaware and uninformed, but not, and I shouldn't say many, some. But I think the majority of people aren't blind, and they see stuff, and they realize it's going to take a lot more than Barack Obama and Eric Holder saying that everything is bad for everybody to believe that everything is bad. I believe it's going to take more. But I got a clip of this. It's a short one. Listen to number 4. Check this out.
Hey, everybody. It's Barack, and I am here with my good friend, Attorney General Eric Holder, because we're facing an existential threat to our democracy, and we need your help.
Right now, in states across the country, like Texas and Florida, these extreme conservative politicians are announcing and acting on plans to slice and dice House districts with the goal of preserving their own power while diluting the voting power of communities of color.
They're doing the same thing in Ohio, trying to give one-party control over almost 90% of congressional seats.
Rather than facing their voters at the polls next year, they're trying to silence them instead.
Eric and I started the NDRC to win fights like this. So, if you want your voice to be heard in next year's midterm elections and beyond, help us meet this moment and preserve our democracy.
Well, thank you, President Obama. And listen, I say everybody wants to preserve democracy, protect the republic, for sure. The problem with an ad like this is that people also know how to count. And when somebody knows how to do math and they start looking at places like Texas or Florida or these other states, and they say, all right, so hold on. How many congressional seats do we have? And they come up with a number, 10, 25, 30, whatever, right? And you say, okay, so we have 30 districts, 30 congressional seats. And then they go, well, how many of these people in our country, in our state specifically, voted for a Republican? And they come up with a number. If that number doesn't look like the amount of Congress people you have representing you, the representatives in the House of Representatives, then something is off. Yet you have that. You have some states that have 40% Republican vote, 60% Democrat, but yet they don't have 40% representation when it comes to Congress. They've got like 80%. And California is one of those. Illinois is one of those. So talk about a threat. I'd say the real threat here is having Americans that know how to count, and they're going to be able to call you out on this. So shame on you, Eric Holder. Shame on you, Barack Obama. And amigos, stick around. There's more to come straight ahead. It's Rich Valdes. Friday night, we're live, 833-4-VALDEZ.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdes, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdes.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdes, Valdes with an S, at Rich Valdes on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be with you this evening. It is 7 minutes past the top of the hour this Friday night. We're live and national. And let me give you the phone number. We're launching Open Phone America right here this hour. I want to hear from you on a number of topics. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. And it's Friday night, so I'm going to, loosen up a little bit here. I was at the gym earlier. I actually changed my gym schedule. I normally work out 3 days a week, 2 days a week. This week I worked out 5 days. And 'cause I'm trying to, lose a little bit of weight and put on weight in a couple of other areas with weightlifting. And let me tell you, I think the best schedule is 5 days a week. It's probably what's best for your body. 2 rest days, 5 days going in. But I say all of that to say I am exhausted. So if I sound tired, it's because I went to the gym later in the day, and I usually go earlier. So forgive me if I'm a drag. But I want to get into a couple of things. And one of the things I want to talk about is an interesting story. May not matter to a lot of people, but I happen to love fast food. Not good for you, so I don't eat it as much. But Taco Bell was one of my faves. Yo quiero Taco Bell. And the Taco Bell people are now rethinking their AI drive-through after a man ordered 18,000 bottles of water. This is kind of crazy, right? Now, I haven't used the AI at the Taco Bell, but I have been to the Golden Arches. And you pull up there, and right away there's some, AI-sounding voice that says, "Will you be using the McDonald's app today?" And I always go, "No, I'm not," because I feel like I never get good discounts or whatever. It's not worth having the app, in my opinion. But Taco Bell rethinking this stuff because the restaurants in question they've been made fun of, right? People are making funny videos of the technology that they're employing, and these things are getting a lot of action. In one clip, a customer seemingly crashed the system by ordering 18,000 water cups, while another person got an increasingly he became increasingly angry as the AI repeatedly asked him to add more drinks to his order. I'd probably get mad at that too. Since 2023, the fast food chain has been introducing AI technology at about 500 locations in the U.S., with their hope to reduce mistakes as they went along and, of course, speed up orders. But the AI seems to have served up the exact opposite, right? Slower serving times and increased friction. So it didn't quite work out the way they intended. But I'm curious to know if you guys have tried this AI, drive-through. I had not. Other than, like I said, saying I'm not using the app, I don't know that I've ever made an order completely with a robot. Some people that seem like robots, yes, but the actual robot, no. So I don't know. I'm curious to know what you guys think. 833-4-VALDES. Now, the chief digital and technology officer at Taco Bell, that's Dane Matthews, told the Wall Street Journal that deploying the AI voice had its specific challenges, saying sometimes it lets me down, but sometimes it really surprises me. He said the firm was learning a lot, but they would definitely think again and carefully about where to go and use this AI moving forward, because it's probably not best to be used at drive-thrus. So that's probably a good piece of advice. But just imagine, right? You go and you're trying to prank the machine. It's 18,000 cups of water. It's bananas. No, it's tacos. Anyway, I want to know what you think about that. Now, if you're going to buy 18,000 cups of water, and presuming they charge it at 50 cents, instead of giving it to you for free, you're probably going to need some money. Now, where are you going to get this money? Well, maybe you're playing the Powerball tomorrow. Powerball jackpot is beyond $1 billion. That's crazy. Now, I think I've played Powerball once or twice before, and I didn't win, obviously, because I would have told everybody if I won. But tomorrow's drawing is expected to be above $1 billion. This is the 6th time in the history of the game that it's gone this high. So kudos to everybody in New York that can play this game, and I hope you win. And I got to say, sometimes you got to be in it to win it. Personal story, my brother Bobby, Robert Valdes, he passed away a couple of years ago. He played a $20 scratch-off and won $5 million from a $20 scratch-off. And he was already a wealthy guy. He had a very, very good business. But an extra $5 million doesn't hurt, especially after taxes. I think you still walk away with like 3.5, 3.25, something like that. Great. So, yes, sometimes all you do need is $1 and a dream. And Godspeed to everybody who plays. Hopefully you win. I never play because I never win, but it's good to see that these are real things and they happen to real people. And I can attest for that just from my brother. He was on News 12, the local news channel, with this huge check from the state saying he won. And they paid him. And he was able to go and spend money and save money and do a lot of things with business. So I wish everybody the best if you're playing the Powerball tomorrow night. And I want to get into a few things this hour. Of course, we're going to get to some of your calls as well. But I want to get into the issue of veterans not getting the support they need at some of the most critical times, and them deciding that they have to check out, that they have to throw in the towel. Suicide's the only way out. This is problematic for many, but we have to be there. I think you have to be able to come alongside the people in your community, whether they look like you or they don't look like you. Doesn't matter to me. We just have to be there for them. And we're going to learn more about how we all can do more to be there for veterans, and what Mission Roll Call is doing to be there for veterans as well. So don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Rich Valdes, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, amigos, we return. And again, we're going to continue our conversation on a couple of fronts. We've been talking about fraudulent spending in the government. We're talking about the radical nature of the Democrat Party as of late. We're talking about the prevention of veteran suicide. We're going to do a little bit more of that after the bottom of the hour. And we're talking about the Powerball jackpot passing $1 billion for the sixth time in its history. And of course, I was talking about being tired from the gym and Taco Bell maybe stopping some of their AI use at drive-thrus, which I just think that's funny. So I want to get your thoughts on everything we've been discussing tonight. Lots to discuss. Let's go to the phones. Where do I want to start? Well, we'll start with the first story we started with was President Trump losing in court. A 3-judge panel, they decided that tariffs were illegal. And now the administration will be moving forward. They have until October 14th to continue the existing tariff policy. And between now and then, obviously, they have to get in touch with the Supreme Court to, get the final say on this. And I suspect that the Supreme Court's going to say these judges were being activists. They just wanted to slow you down and, try and put a damper on things. But ultimately, it's going to be very difficult to tell a sitting president who was elected by the people that they cannot, in effect, run their government or have duties on foreign goods. Taxes on imports is a thing. It's always been a thing, and for this court to say it's not a thing, I think is a real stretch. But again, they're always stretching and reaching and reinventing themselves and contorting themselves to try and create some semblance of truth when it comes to El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th and 47th president of these United States. So let's see what, others have to say. Let's go to San Francisco, California, KSFO, and check in with David. David, go right ahead.
Oh, thanks, Rich. As we come into the holiday weekend, just a reminder to the audience, if you're going to buy gasoline and go traveling, boycott Chevron. They're the ones that have the drilling rights for the oil underneath Gaza. And this war would not be happening if it wasn't for Chevron.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you this. I've actually been boycotting Chevron as long as I've been a driver. I've never put Chevron in my car. And reason why? Early in life, I don't even know if it was true, but some of my friends that were anti-communist said, they get all of their oil from Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. And that was all I needed to hear, them and Valero, which I think is a Venezuelan gas company. And that was it. I said, all right, good. There's plenty of other ones out there. I'm happy to not indulge. So, look, for once, we agree it's Labor Day. David in San Francisco, California, Godspeed to you, my friend. Enjoy the weekend, and thank you. Let's see, where do we go now? Let's go to Connecticut. We're going to check in with Joe. Joe is calling us from Bethel, Connecticut, WLAD. Joe, go right ahead, sir.
Happy Labor Day, Mr. Valdes.
Oh, thank you, Joe. It's very kind of you. Thank you, sir. Right back at you.
Written, the laborers are few.
Oh, yeah, right. Right. The work is plentiful, but the laborers are few. That's the truth, right? You look at that. You look at whether it's the Bible, the political landscape, your backyard, wherever, right? There's always more work than people to do the work. You're right. The work is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Any big plans for Labor Day, Joe?
I'm not going to work.
Good for you. It sounds like you've earned that, right? And I'm happy that you'll be taking
How about
some time off. I'm going to have a little cookout, some friends and family and stuff like that to try and say goodbye to summer, which honestly left. I would say summer left us probably about a week ago. I think last weekend I was down the shore in New Jersey, and it got really chilly at night. And, once that's the first sign that summer is on its way out, is that it's not hot at night anymore. It gets cool at night. So I'll be having my last hurrah. And then, soon after then, as soon as my tan starts to fade, I will be in Miami or in Puerto Rico or somewhere making sure I keep the tan going, because I really do enjoy the warm weather. And I don't like, many people love the fall. People who live in New York on the East Coast, like you in Connecticut, a lot of people love the changing of the colors of the tree. I'm not one of them. I would love to see the trees be green all year. I don't care for the leaves on the floor and the mess that it makes. If we could just have them stay green and stay on the tree, I'd be the happiest guy. So I'm looking forward to moving to warmer temperature as God permits, as time permits. So that's kind of where I'm at, Joe. Thank you for asking, though. I appreciate it, my brother. And we continue. Let us go. LAD, by the way, WLAD in the building. Now, where do we go? We're going to WVMT. That's the Vermont station. Which spills over into Canada, Montreal, Canada. And our buddy Tony is a Canadian listening on WVMT. Tony, go right ahead.
You're amazing, Rich. I love listening to you guys. You're an educator. That's what I got to call you. You're an educator, and you're a provoker. In French, we call you provocateur. You're provoking thought, and you're doing it in a really fair way, and I always give you kudos for that. I just want to talk a little bit about these different left-wing governments in municipal cities across North America, and You start with this guy in Minneapolis. I call him Omar Gashouse Fata, and
he just got disowned by the Democrats, right? They rescinded their endorsement and they said we're not backing this guy.
Yeah, and then you have this other Karen Bass. Well, we've bashed her enough, so Rock Bass, and I've lost my tongue in Ghana. And you have Cheryl Parker. Cheryl is Cher, like Cheer, and L, like the Français, E-L-L-E. Not just not like Cheryl, the great singer that we have, but she has a special spelling. And then you have Michelle Wu, Valerie Greenplant in Montreal, Bruno Marchand, another left-wing Zoranista in Quebec City. And, of course, you have Newscom, who spent something like $9 billion. No, wait, hang on. How much? $11 billion. Took him 9 years to build 1,600 feet of a electric train, which is a bridge to nowhere. Imagine, $11 billion. And then, of course, you have Olivia Chow, in another Zoranista in Toronto, and, of course, Zoran Mandamus. I call him Zoran Mandamus. Another
like
Zoranista.
A writ of Mandamus?
Mandamus. And, this lady, Olivia Chow, she has her name in Mandarin, and then she has her name in the other traditional Chinese names. So can't speak proper English, but she's the mayor of Toronto, pushing DEI, spending lots of money. And the general idea of all these people, Rich, is that they have the tax base under manotte, as we say in French, under handcuff. They have our money, and they could spend it on vanity projects, whether electric trains or what I call bike traps in Montreal rather than bike paths. And you have the people like Zoranista in New York spending how many millions of dollars? What business does that gentleman have to promote the idea of DEI in elementary or any educational school? His job is to deliver water, garbage services, keep up the pools, keep up the parks, and deliver municipal services, clean the streets. If you have snow, clean the snow. And if you have garbage, pick it up. I don't
100% right. I think you're spot on. People have to do what's right. And I always say right is right, wrong is wrong. A, thank you for your kind words, Tony. I appreciate it. And B, I want to ask you and everybody else that's listening a question. And the question is, what do we know about veteran suicide? How do we improve that? We got a clip coming up that you're going to hear. And if you have stories or, something you want to share, feel free, 833-482-5337. The late, great Jim Bohannon served this country in uniform and always made it a point to highlight veterans, especially those in need and those facing these types of dire situations like facing suicide. So we'll continue that together straight ahead. I'm Rich Valdes.
Listen, I like your show. It's the best night show there is. I think you got the best spirit, the best emotions. You're real. You're really a good guy.
America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back, and we continue with open phones across America. Open Phone America is a time-honored tradition on this program. It started with the late Larry King when he started this back in 1978, taking over this time slot from Long John Neville on the Mutual Broadcast System, MBS. And, of course, his newsman, the legend himself, Jim Bohannon, taking over, carrying that torch for 30 years, Open Phone America. And now you and me get to have this late-night national town hall conversation, live and national, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDES. And let's go to Frank. Frank is in Cumberland, Maryland, WCBC. Frank, go for it.
Last night you said, I think it was 8 years that you spent in the Office of Admissions at a college. Could you please tell us what you learned about the students, the potential students, the teachers, the administrators, the system, and human nature in general?
All right, hang on, just in case you have a follow-up, because I learned so much. What you come up with great questions. You must have been a producer in radio in your past life, Frank. But, I did learn so much. Principally, what I learned about the students first. Principally, it was adult students that were trying to complete a baccalaureate degree, and they worked, and it was, an accelerated program for people that had gone to college and then kind of bailed out on college to work or start a family. And I can tell you that it's like meeting somebody who was fat and becomes fit. Right? Those people, you're not going to complain around those people because they've done so much. They put in so much work in order to overcome so many odds. And what ends up happening with that, same thing, when you have these adult students working, minimum 40 hours a week, and now they're cracking open their books and they're studying to get this, degree that likely will help them in their career field. You can't help but admire their tenacity and respect their work ethic. And I met so many just really passionate, committed professional people doing that type of work. So the students were great, and it was really, I think I was more blessed by them than they were by anything I could ever offer them. About the administrators and the school culture, I'd watched it kind of change because I was there. I wasn't just in one school. I was in several, but I was in one school 2 different times, both prior to my service in the state of New Jersey, and then when I stopped working in the Christie administration, I went back and worked there again. And in a similar role, more marketing focused than specifically admissions. But to put all of it to bed, what I learned in those 2 go-rounds was the first time around, it was a dream team. You had people that were truly committed all the time to people's education and putting the student first and putting in, going the extra mile. It was never about them. It was always about how we can help these people. And that was really the attitude. That's what made it work. It was a small school, about 1,000 students enrolled. And I loved it. I really did. It was a great time. Second go-round, there were some changes. There were some new characters, new people, new high-level administrators. Same president, but the bureaucracy had grown a little bit. And you could tell that the focus on the students, there were less bleeding hearts for the students. And you could see it and you could feel it. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I would presume it had a little bit of both, right? It was probably good in that the fiscal management of the school was tighter and there was more of a focus on we are here to make money. This is a business, not just to help people. And you need to balance those two. And so it was interesting to see the culture and organizationally how it changed in the time that I was there. In the first go-around, the first 4 years I spent in more career-focused education. And what I learned there was really just most people have very similar needs, Frank. And they come in and they're looking to meet a need. And they believe that this education that you might be able to provide them with meets that need one way or another. The first school, not the first school, but the second school I worked at, had a lot of focus on healthcare. They had a nursing program for licensed practical nurses, and they had a surgical technology program for people who wanted to become board certified as surgical techs to assist in operating room, in surgeries with surgeons. And very, very good field. You're talking about a year and a half of schooling and very, very specialized knowledge. And it was great to meet those people because it wasn't an easy course. It was hard to get into. It required a lot of commitment. And again, you start to figure out, who the people that go into healthcare are and the people that really make a difference in our lives when we're all in the healthcare system. And that was great. Again, another real blessing to see these people, how committed they were and how much they actually did. And overall, I learned that the cost of higher education, post-secondary education specifically, is expensive. And I felt that, in 2006 and 7 and those years that I was there, that we were reaching the point of diminishing returns on a higher education investment. And I believe that we have not only arrived at that place, but we've now surpassed that place where anybody going to college today, you're no longer, in my opinion, in many situations, not all, if you're getting a professional license out of it, you will likely make your money back. But if you're not, you may put yourself in a position where this is a liability and not an asset. And that's purely based on the price. If you spend a fortune, if you're spending $42,000 a year and you're studying gender studies, well, then guess what? You're probably never going to make that money back. And that's the unfortunate part. But that's one's choice, right? I guess people will make the debate over if there's Pell Grants involved and if there's, some sort of federal aid that, we're all kind of footing the bill for. But that's always been there, and that's not something I think that we're able to change. But definitely a consideration as, that's part of the conversation. Did I get everything, Frank, or no?
I think you touched all the bases.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate the really good question. Always an in-depth question with you, Frank. And I'm going to take a pause here, and then I'm going to come back to one of my favorites. We call him the Gilla in Manila. Gil, who is streaming the show out of Georgia, WGKA. He's in San Antonio, Texas, but it is Gil from the Philippines. Gil from Manila is coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S.
All right, amigos, Rich Valdes, welcome back. We continue our late night national town hall conversation. 833-482-5337 is the phone number, or as she just said, 833-4-VALDES. And I want to go to my man, Gil, the Gilla from Manila. Go right ahead, sir.
Well, you just mentioned the problem with suicide among military, active military, and military veterans.
Yes.
Here in the hospital, there are signs and placards and call this number, call that number. But I see an awful lot of older veterans like myself. And I'm very lucky. I have my wife and our daughter. They're here taking care of me. They let them, when I was in for over a week, they let my wife or the daughter stay with me all the time. I was never alone.
Very kind.
So many of the, that's 24/7. They have like a lazy boy chair and they stayed there the whole time. But I see just so many men who don't have anybody, and they have nothing. They have nothing to look forward to. I'm going to have my eye surgery on Tuesday, and I'm looking forward to renewing my driver's license. And I always have something to look forward to, but so many people don't. They're alone, and I don't know what can be done about it, but I think that's the reason.
Well, you know what? I think part of what you're talking about is so important, and it's, to me, it's the cornerstone of society is family. and what you're describing is family, and just really, it's just a hospital. It's allowing family to be there. And I'll tell you this, Gil. Both my parents are not with me anymore, and they had their own health issues. And I went through a long series of care with each of them, and I can tell you that it makes all the difference in the world for them, for the patient that's ailing, to be around the people they want to be around. 100%, right? You're willing to fight for your health a lot more if the people that you love and love you are there. B, it I think makes it easier on the nursing staff when they have more help in the room. So, I've always been a fan of people that allow a good amount of people. My family, we're Puerto Rican, we have a big family. So if the hospital has one of those policies, like, one at a time or no more than two, we figure out quickly how to, game the system and get 5 or 6 people in there. We're having a little party. And it's always been that way. And, obviously we're going to try and befriend the nurse that comes to try to kick us out so she doesn't call security. And try not to make too much noise. Bring donuts, bring coffee, bring whatever you can to bribe them. You got to bribe away. But I love that they're treating you right, Gil, because you're right. This is what people need in order to heal. Do you agree?
Okay. Can I tell a quick joke?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Well, I was in the hospital for a month in Manila with pneumonia, and the complications of that are why I'm here. I lost most of my hearing and my eyesight in one eye because of the medications, but they saved my life. Well, when I was discharged from the hospital, the doctor said, "We've done all we could do. The rest is up to you." And he looked at my wife and he said, Love is the best medicine. And I said, oh, yeah? Well, if love is the best medicine, why does she hide my Viagra?
Look, another one I'm laughing at. You did good again. I usually miss these. You did an excellent job with that one. Your comedic timing and delivery is impeccable as always, sir, and I appreciate it. Once you get your eye surgery, is that it for you? Do we no longer have you in the States? Are you going back home?
No, I'll be here for therapy, probably for a year.
Oh, good. So are you coming to New York or what?
Well, because I lost most of my hearing, I now have vertigo. And it's called vestibular issues. And they have a special program of vestibular therapy, and I'm going to try to get into that. But you see, since we've been here in the United States, my wife has begun to like it. I think I told you our daughter is entering the United States Army.
Yes.
Following, I had 2 careers in the Army. One, I was with Jim in the National Security Agency, and then I had 9 years in military medicine. She's going to take this very same course that I took in the 1980s. It's still available, and you come out of it with a bachelor's degree in medical technology. So,
very nice.
Yeah, and of course my wife is a nurse from the Philippines, and I can get her license here. So we may not be going back, or we may spend part of the time here and part of the time in Manila, which a lot of people do.
Well, let me tell you, I love that you're here. I hope that you can make your way somehow to the city so we can have lunch or something. And on top of all of that, I'm happy that you're healing and you're coming along and you're getting the care that you need. So grateful for your service to this country, and grateful that things are working out for you, Gil. You are you're a champ. The other day, I was mentioning a call that we had to a friend of mine in conversation, and somebody else was there, like not a friend, not an adversary, just not somebody I knew personally. And I was talking to a caller on my show, a guy named Gil from Manila. No, I said the Gilla from Manila. And the guy said, "Is that Gil from Manila?" And I said, yeah, you know him? He's like, yeah, he's been calling that show forever. And I was like, yep, that's him. And the guy was a listener of the show, and he'd been listening. He was older, and he had also listened to Larry King, believe it or not. And he was like, yeah, I remember him calling into Larry King, and I remember him calling into Bohannon. And I was like, man, there goes Gil again, upstaging me like usual. You're the real rock star here, brother. God bless you.
Okay. Well, one other thing, if I could, I'm not Hispanic, but my Spanish is pretty good. You know, we've spoken in Spanish sometimes.
Yes.
And my Hispanic friends call me the old gringo, and some of the women call me the dirty old gringo. And I'll close it.
That was good. That was good. Gil from Manila, a.k.a. the Gilla from Manila. Thank you, brother. Always good to hear from you. Streaming the show tonight out of Georgia. He's in Texas at the VA hospital. Godspeed to you, sir. And we come right back. Kansas, New York, and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, amigos, welcome back to the phones. We go straight to the East Coast, WGDJ Albany area, Saratoga, New York. That's where the famous blue bottles of water come from, Saratoga Springs. Let's check in with our friend Jane. Jane, go right ahead.
The blue bottle. Okay, now I want to make a point. Many people who are depressed, I ran into it a lot in Miami. Gil is awesome, by the way. What an amazing person. They start using electric shock on people. They use it in walk-in clinics, and it can be very, very detrimental. 3 friends of mine who were retired veterans, they kind of would just walk around like zombies, and no one was aware of the damage the depression was doing to them, and they took their lives. I want people to be very careful because they do use.
Well, I know that this isn't typically offered as the primary treatment, and I've never done it myself, so I can't speak from experience. But I do know that some people who said that they were just really they couldn't break the depressive cycle, that the electroshock therapy actually did help them, and it was beneficial. But I've heard what you're saying as well, that it can, kind of fry you, if you will. So, yeah, I agree. Anytime you're talking about shock to your brain, it's likely going to be a thing. Anyway, thank you, Jane. I appreciate that. Let me see. Gene is calling us from San Jose, California, streaming the show tonight, richvaldes.com. And, Gene, you've got like 25 seconds. Go for it quickly.
Yeah, for the vertigo with the hearing loss, my boyfriend took a 12.5 milligram pill of meclizine about twice a day, and it helped a lot.
Wow. Meclizine, is that like Dramamine? We've got to find out more about that. Jean, thank you for the call. Shout out to San Jose, California. Amigos, hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdes.